Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. The CPC leadership debate took place in Edmonton on Wednesday night. We hear from some of the candidates and their concerns with each other. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney discusses his leadership review as votes from card-carrying UCP members are being tallied. And we hear from a Christian organization in Moldova helping to provide food, water, and clothing for Ukrainian refugees fleeing the war with Russia.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. The Conservative Party of Canada had their first official debate on Wednesday night, the debate sanctioned by the party. 6 candidates are vying to become the next leader of the federal Conservatives. Now, one of the main frontrunners, Pierre Poilievre, was targeted by the other candidates on topics such as his stance on abortion and embracing the cryptocurrency Bitcoin. Leslyn Lewis also says Poilievre shouldn't be meddling with Canada's biggest bank. Poilievre said should he become Prime Minister, he would fire Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem for being an ATM for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's deficit spending.
The Bank of Canada has long-term plans. In Parliament, their budgets are of a short-term nature. I respect the division of powers there. I respect the Bank of Canada having the capacity and their officials having the capacity to make long-term projections that are not based on partisanship.
At the end of the evening, I'd like folks to, come away and say, well, this is what Mr. Charest would do if he becomes the leader. And that's what I believe in. But I did see something tonight that I have never, ever seen in a debate in my lifetime. Never, ever have I seen someone flip-flop on stage on something like abortion. I mean, Mr. Poilievre to flip-flop in one answer to the other is unprecedented on an issue like that. I've never seen that happen before.
The vote where he refused to condemn hate against Muslims and Islamophobia, that was only a few years ago. And so, unfortunately, for Mr. Poilievre, his voting record and his past make it very difficult for him to be a champion of religious freedom, which I believe is important if you're going to make breakthroughs in suburban Canada.
As for Ottawa MP Pierre Poilievre, he received the loudest applause of the night from the packed Edmonton Convention Centre. The party will choose its new leader in September. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney responded to UCP MLA Brian Jean filing a complaint with Elections Alberta. This comes after Jean claims 8 credit cards were used to buy over 4,600 UCP memberships. Jean says the bulk buying came from the Kenney campaign team. Now, during a stop in our city on Wednesday, Premier Jason Kenney said the memberships were bought through a system that is verified, and Jean's complaint is just another attempt to try and divide the party.
It's all just silliness. The party has a approved process for campaigns like Mr. Jean's nomination campaign to process paper membership forms through an online portal. All of that is verified, it's all audited, all the paperwork is there to prove that those were all individual purchases with people's consent and payment. So this is unfortunate that some people continue to want to distract. So I think that's coming from folks who, for whatever reason, are more focused on division than unity, but I think the vast majority of Alberta Conservatives want to be united.
May 18th, we will also know the results of the UCP leadership review and if Premier Jason Kenney will receive the support he needs, the 50+1 vote, to be able to stay on as party leader. Kenney says he feels pretty confident.
Oh, I'm confident that I'll receive an endorsement from the members of the United Conservative Party who want to move forward united into the future, recognizing our government has delivered on 90% of our election commitments. We know as Conservatives we can only win if we're united, and I think that's the view of the vast majority of our members.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canada's contribution to NATO's defense will give Russia's Vladimir Putin pause about expanding aggression into NATO territory. He says Canada will deploy a general and 6 staff officers to join NATO's multinational division. Canada leads NATO's battle group in Latvia with close to 700 armed forces members. Trudeau met with his Latvian counterpart in Ottawa on Thursday to discuss continued military cooperation in light of Russia's war with Ukraine.
Despite the dark and brutal realities of war, Ukrainians continue to seek a bright, free, democratic future. We will together, collectively, be there to support Ukrainians as they defend themselves against Putin's illegal invasion. And we will be there as the country rebuilds afterwards.
Russia's warning that it will have to take what it calls military technical steps in response to Finland's decision to join NATO. Government officials say they want to join the alliance without delay. Now, Moscow says the move will inflict serious damage on Russian-Finnish relations, along with the stability and security of Northern Europe. The two countries share a land border that is more than 1,300 kilometers long. Meanwhile, neighboring Sweden is expected to join NATO in the coming days. Volunteers rushed to rescue dozens of people from towns under attack from Russian forces in eastern Ukraine. One group of elderly women whose homes were destroyed by shelling warned there would be further bloodshed in their hometown, where the bombing does not stop.
Разбитые дома, очень плохо. Лично у меня вот так вот завалилось все в середину. Сначала оббивали стекла, только летели, а потом все, 3 удара в дом, так, все завалилось.
У меня все окна повылетало, все повылетало, все поразбивало.
Ребята сказали, убирайте, будет месиво.
You know, it's been about 3 months since Russia invaded Ukraine. The United Nations says over 3,000 civilians have been killed since the war began. Close to 4,000 have been injured as well. Now, there's been a rumor swirling around that Russian President Vladimir Putin is seriously ill. Dr. Chris Burton, an associate professor of history at the University of Lethbridge, addressed that rumor during a presentation at SACPA on Thursday.
Members of the American Congress have said that there's something going on there medically with Putin, but they won't tell us what it is, right? It's highly confidential. People have looked at Putin, they've noticed his puffy face, they believe he may be on steroids, which is alarming in itself. Members of the American Congress have intelligence on this, which they're not sharing with us. So yes, there is something to it.
Now, by the way, the Kremlin has denied that Russian President Vladimir Putin is in poor health. Within hours of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Operation Mobilization teams set up first response tents on the borders with Moldova, Poland, Romania, and Hungary. The teams have been handing out hot food, drinks, and other essentials, including blankets, sanitation packs, and warm clothing. As we hear in this next story, OM Moldova is serving Ukrainian refugees as they cross their border.
My name is Vlad. We are at the Moldavian-Ukrainian border, and we are here with OM, and we set up here a tent for serving refugees from Ukraine. We are giving here water, hot drinks, and some food.
My name is Oksana, and I serve with OM in Moldova. The Bible verse that comes to my mind is the one that says that whenever you feed the needy and you clothe those that need it, you did that for me. Reading the Bible, you know, God says to love Him with our hearts and soul and mind, and also to love our neighbors as ourselves. And literally our neighbors now are in real big need, and they need help. So that's why I'm here. There is that famous question, what would Jesus do? And Jesus, when he was on earth, he met the immediate needs as well, alongside the spiritual needs of people. So it is really important for us as followers of Jesus to show his love and his heart to the people. And also Jesus said, because you love one another, they will know that you are my disciples. And this love is not to keep just in between us, but is to also share and show to others.
Great to see the work they're doing overseas. Well, we enjoyed another beautiful spring-like day here in Lethbridge, and the mercury will be climbing even more as we make our way to the weekend. Jeanette Rocher is in now with an early look at the forecast. Jeanette, there's a chance of a little moisture tonight. Then what, a nice weekend is shaping up?
Well, you know, we could see a chance of showers early this evening, and then you're right, going to be clearing up for a mainly sunny day on Friday. Increasing clouds a little bit throughout the day. Later on Friday, a little bit windy as well. We're looking at 30-kilometer-per-hour winds, gusting to 50 and even 70 kilometers per hour at times. But then shaping up for a mainly clear and sunny weekend. I'll have all those details coming up for you later on in the newscast.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. A Southern Alberta man is headed to trial 8 years after he was charged with defrauding 3 Taber agriculture businesses of nearly $1 million. The case against Scott James Piggott will begin May 1st of next year. 40-year-old Piggott is charged with 2 counts of theft over $5,000 and 1 charge of fraud over $5,000. It's alleged that between March and July of 2013, hay was obtained, but payment of more than $800,000 was never received. Piggott is also accused of running a scam in Montana involving non-delivery of cattle feed. Reports say Montana investigators accuse Piggott of defrauding the state's cattle producers of up to $5 million through his company. Lethbridge Police will be conducting a phone survey looking for feedback on community policing. The LPS says ongoing dialogue will allow police to work on a collaborative approach addressing the needs here in our community. The results will be used to help guide the service's next 4-year business and strategic plan. Police say the survey is confidential and will take up to 20 minutes to complete, and results will be shared later this summer. Well, it appears as though addictions are on the rise across much of North America. Psychologist Dr. Greg Jans says there are telltale signs you can watch out for those who are struggling with drug, alcohol, or even digital addiction.
It's secrecy. I try to hide this. I try to keep it away from others. So anytime there's secrecy, there may be shame. I'm really embarrassed about this. And then we play the game with ourselves that says, you know what, it's really not hurting anybody. I can stop this at any time. And so we start to move into what we call denial in order to justify our behavior. Over time, here's what to look at. Over time, that addictive behavior, it's like a ticking time bomb. Something will break.
Dr. Jans will offer advice on how we may best help our loved ones who may be battling addiction. That interview is coming up in the second half of our newscast. The Southern Alberta Ethnic Association is bringing back the Asian Heritage Festival. Now this year, people can attend in person. On Saturday, May 28th at the Multicultural Centre, locals will be able to enjoy tasty food along with some free entertainment. An official with the group explains why an event like this is so very important.
SEAE has over 21 different groups, different culture groups as members here. And so we try to celebrate many of those different cultures with doing events here. And so Asian Heritage Festival is one of our popular ones that we do annually. And it's super important for the community to come out and learn in a fun, interactive way all about the culture. So it's a great experience. It's important to be diverse, and we want everybody to come out and enjoy it.
The Asian Heritage Festival will run from 11 a.m. till 3 p.m. on May the 28th. The game of disc golf has become quite popular at Lethbridge College. Games were played recently to raise funds for student scholarships at the post-secondary institution. BCN's Micah Quinn has more now on this innovative fundraiser.
Students and staff gathered together to play a few friendly games of disc golf at the Lethbridge College. The aptly named Chain Shaker Scholarship Maker raised money for student scholarships at the college's Center for Business, Arts, and Sciences. The goal is to raise $9,000.
We have a number of scholarships to support students in both business and general arts and sciences, and our exercise science program. So all the money that we raise today goes entirely to support students.
I think that there's always a finite supply of money, but especially for our students, we see it as important that we raise awareness that says that we would like to have as much scholarship money as possible to help out the needs of students, which may have changed during COVID, and perhaps people are no longer or can no longer be as reliant on their parents or other support.
At this point, you might be asking yourself just exactly what disc golf is. All you need is a disc and a basket with a chain.
It's played just like regular golf, except for using a disc this time. We're playing best ball, or best disc, I suppose, so we can get everybody to participate and have a good time here. So if you're playing with a group and somebody throws the farthest, you use that disc and everybody gathers their discs and plays from there. So nobody's feeling left behind or left out. We're all part of a team.
Over $6,000 has been raised for the fundraiser so far. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Looks like a lot of fun. The largest wildfire in the United States is spreading toward mountain resort towns in northern New Mexico, prompting officials there to urge more people to leave the area. Now, at the same time, a blaze that erupted in coastal Southern California is racing through an area of multi-million-dollar mansions, burning at least 20 homes.
It sounds like you just got word from your son that he saw your home on fire on TV.
Yeah, I did. He just called me and said, Dad, I think our house is on fire.
that's just down the way here?
Yeah, I'm about 4 or 5 houses down. I can't go down any further, but it looks like it gets worse when you go down there, and I'm sure it's probably burnt by now.
Parents across North America are scrambling to find baby formula because of supply disruptions and a massive safety recall by manufacturer Abbott.
Depending on where people live, there have been severe stockouts of baby formula. Now, it's not widespread everywhere yet, but with that one big plant being shut down and not producing baby formula, we are producing way less baby formula than babies are consuming. And our inventory has been diminished severely.
There's a big auction taking place, and if you're a Star Wars fan, you'll want to take note. The Pyro X-Wing Starfighter model miniature from the iconic film Star Wars: A New Hope is among over 1,800 film and TV props up for sale at the prop store in Hollywood, California.
You're going to see recognizable and iconic props and costumes from over 600 different films and television shows, and you're also going to see other related entertainment memorabilia collectibles. There's over 1,800 lots in total, and we do have all different price points represented as well. So the most expensive pieces are going to have estimate values of $500 to $1 million, but the least expensive pieces are going to start at only $200. If I could call out some of my personal favorite items in this auction, I'm going to go straight for the Top Gun jet. I love that movie. This is a 6-foot model miniature used in the effects work of the original Top Gun. I'm going to call out the Back to the Future hoverboard, another favorite of mine. This is a Marty McFly hoverboard from Back to the Future Part 2. The Edward Scissorhands piece, which is his glove from the film of the same name, is a wonderful item. The Grail Diary from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, if everyone remembers that one. And I would wrap it up with the X-Wing model from Star Wars, which is just a fantastic thing to have surfaced, original from that first Star Wars: A New Hope film in 1977. So this is an original filming model miniature, custom made for the film, and it actually screen matches, meaning you can place it specifically in the movie. And as far as we know, it is the only one in private hands, and it's the only one from the first film that has ever come up for auction.
Owning some Hollywood memorabilia, that'd be pretty cool. Well, some parts of southwestern Alberta felt cool today with a little bit of moisture, but the rain cloud should be clearing out by the weekend. Full weather details are coming up shortly. Well, we had some light showers in parts of southwestern Alberta today. Now, a lot of the rain clouds will be clearing out, making way for more sunshine. Jeanette Rocher is in now with a complete look at the weather forecast. Jeanette, so far, looks like a pretty nice weekend is shaping up.
Yeah, it certainly is how we could see a slight chance of showers this evening and then clearing up overnight, giving us a nice, sunny start to Friday, and then increasing clouds throughout the day. A little bit windy as well, as I mentioned earlier, up to 50 to 70 kilometer per hour wind gusts tomorrow. 10 degrees the high, getting into high of 16. That's more seasonal. There for Saturday, sunshine as well, and then sunny skies on Sunday, up to 20 degrees, 22 on Monday, high of 19 on Tuesday, and 15 on Wednesday. Now, seasonably, we are talking about a high of 18 degrees for the average high. So we're finally getting there, and we're going to be beyond that as well as we get into later on this weekend and next week. Average low for this time of year, 4 degrees. 39 was our high temperature back in 1960, and in 1983, we had our coldest day, which was -7. Sunrose this morning was at 5:51 a.m. and our sunset this evening 9:04 p.m., giving us 15 hours and 13 minutes of daylight, 2 minutes longer than yesterday. A bit rainy on the west coast tomorrow, 11 degrees the high in Victoria. Chance of showers expected in Vancouver as well, high of 12. Edmonton looking at showers and a risk of a thunderstorm in the afternoon, 17 the high, 14 the high in Calgary. Calgary, one of those weird ones. Going to wake up tomorrow, see sunshine. You're going to think it's a sunny day, then those clouds are going to roll in. We're going to see risk of thunderstorm later on in the day. So there you have it. 14 degrees the high tomorrow for Saskatoon. Regina sitting under a rain warning, which is in effect up to 30 millimeters tonight, 15 to 25 millimeters of rain expected tomorrow. Winnipeg, very windy tomorrow. Expect wind gusts up to 70 km per hour. 25 the high in Toronto tomorrow under sunny skies. Ottawa, high of 31 and 30 degrees in Montreal. So this area also feeling the humidex and the high UV index as well. 29 the high in Fredericton tomorrow, 20 the high in Halifax, 21 in Charlottetown. Going to be just beautiful on the East Coast tomorrow, 12 degrees the high in St. John's, Newfoundland with partly cloudy skies. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
More than $1 trillion has been lost as the cryptocurrency meltdown continues. Bitcoin and crypto have dropped to levels not seen since the crypto market began surging in late 2020 and wiping away almost $1 trillion worth of value in a month. Now, according to a report by Forbes, the Bitcoin price dropped to around $27,000 per Bitcoin. That is down 12% over the past 24 hours. Ethereum has crashed 22%, while others including BNB, Solana, and Avalanche all saw losses of between 25 and 33%. The sell-off comes after the $18 billion algorithmic stablecoin Terra USD lost its peg to the US dollar, wiping out the price of its support coin Luna, which has dropped by close to 99% of its value. The federal government has approved a new loan guarantee for the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion for around $10 billion. Trans Mountain is Canada's only oil pipeline system from Alberta to the West Coast. In February, the company revealed the project's price tag had ballooned to $21.4 billion. That's up from an earlier estimate of $12.6 billion. At that time, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland said there would be no additional public funding for the pipeline. Opposition MPs and environmental groups see the new loan guarantee as Freeland going back on her word. The unemployment rate here in Lethbridge is lower thanks to more jobs in a variety of sectors. The CEO of Economic Development Lethbridge, Trevor Lewington, says things in our region are looking up as we slowly make our way out of the pandemic.
Unemployment was down at 5.5%, so that's the best it's been in the last few months and far better than it's been over the last couple of years. We actually saw 1,800 jobs created in April, and it was driven primarily by three main sectors, so construction, manufacturing, and wholesale and retail. So that's good news. We did see a bit of a downturn in healthcare and social assistance, but as the pandemic wanes, we expect that industry that saw a lot of growth, of course, taking care of people, to decline a little bit. So all in all, very positive news.
Mr. Lewington will have more on jobs numbers and how businesses are faring here in our city coming up after business news. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 138 points on the day to finish at 19,699. The Dow was down 103 points to 31,730. The S&P 500 was down 5 points to 3930. And the Nasdaq was up 6 points on the day to 11,370. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up $1 to 106.66 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 4 cents to 7.68 US. Gold was up 9 cents to 1821.91 US an ounce, and silver was up a cent to $20.69 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $15.24 per bushel. Barley's at $10.23. Canola's at $25.99, and corn is at $12.40 per bushel. Live cattle were down $1.93 to $131.65. Feeder cattle were down $1.28 to $156.88, and lean hogs were down $3.38 to $97.48. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 76.65 US. Recapping one of our top stories, Russia is warning that it will have to take what it calls military technical steps in response to Finland's decision to join NATO. Government officials say they want to join the alliance without delay. Moscow says the move will inflict serious damage on Russian-Finnish relations, along with the stability and security of Northern Europe. Meanwhile, neighboring Sweden is expected to join NATO in the coming days. So how are businesses in Lethbridge rebounding as we slowly make our way out of the pandemic? Trevor Lewington, CEO of Economic Development Lethbridge, will have details for us shortly. But first, here's a look at some of the events happening right here in southwestern Alberta.
Here's today's Bridge City News community calendar. Discover how Lethbridge has played an important military role in the preservation of world peace and security by visiting the Lethbridge Military Museum at the Vimy Ridge Armory at the Lethbridge Airport. The museum is open to the public each Wednesday from noon to 4 p.m. Special arrangements for other days and times can be made by calling 403-892-6531. Admission is free, but donations are gratefully accepted. For more information, visit lethbridgemilitarymuseum.org. Celebrate Recovery is a Christ-centered recovery program for any hurt, hang-up, and habit. This group meets Friday nights at Park Meadows Baptist Church. The evening begins at 7 p.m. with a large group session, followed by small groups at 8 with coffee and dessert at 9. For more information, visit celebraterecovery.ca or call the Park Meadows Church office at 403-327-4422. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
Over the years, the city of Lethbridge has enjoyed attracting a wide variety of businesses. Now, the business community in Lethbridge is unique in that our province, we have a wide variety of economic drivers, including our flourishing agriculture industry. We wanted to check in with Trevor Lewington, CEO of Economic Development Lethbridge, to find out how the city of Lethbridge has been faring over the past few months. Trevor, welcome back to BCN.
Thanks so much for having me back.
Now, first off, let's talk a bit about some of the most recent employment numbers. What do our job numbers look like this spring?
So April's labor force survey results were actually quite positive for Lethbridge. So the Lethbridge Census Metropolitan Area, or CMA, unemployment was down at 5.5%. So that's the best it's been in the last few months and far better than it's been over the last couple of years. We actually saw 1,800 jobs created in April, and it was driven primarily by three main sectors, so construction, manufacturing, and wholesale and retail. So that's good news. We did see a bit of a downturn in healthcare and social assistance, but as the pandemic wanes, we expect that industry that saw a lot of growth, of course, taking care of people, to decline a little bit. So all in all, very positive news.
That is great to hear. How do our job numbers compare to other comparable cities like, let's say, Red Deer?
Yeah, the Lethbridge Medicine Hat region has among the lowest unemployment rates in the province, actually, and that's fairly typical. We tend to outperform the rest of Alberta with a low unemployment number, and we've returned back to that status after bouncing around for most of the last 2 years.
Now, is there a challenge of finding workers to fill some of the job vacancies?
Yeah, there are actually about 5,200 job vacancies across the Lethbridge Medicine Hat region at the moment. So those are positions that businesses want to fill, but simply can't find the right person. Although that's a really big number, it's actually improved over the last couple of months. And it's the first time we've seen a drop actually in vacancies since the beginning of 2020. Most of those vacancies are in the trades or transportation and equipment operators. And that's a bit of a concern to people like me, because of course, those jobs are a bottleneck to future economic growth and recovery. That's where, a lot of our industries rely on transportation and trades to do their thing. The other thing that we're starting to see is that average wages have actually increased a little bit. So the average wage across all of those vacancies is $21.50 an hour. And that's the highest it's been in a while. So we're starting to see a little bit of inflationary pressure as companies try to attract that talent.
I talked to some of the truckers who are leaving the industry because they're retiring, and apparently there is a shortage when it comes to logistics. Are you seeing and hearing that as well, that we need more truckers?
Yeah, Class 1 drivers is a clear gap in the economy all across North America, actually. So a lot of drivers are sort of at that retirement age. Many of them are exiting the business. And there's just not enough young people interested in truck driving as a career. And what we hear from training schools is that people don't want to be alone for that amount of time in a hyper-connected world. So the whole industry is struggling with how do we make it a more attractive job for sort of younger generations. So that's the gap.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. How about some of the local businesses here in our city? How are they faring right now, especially as we slowly make our way out of the pandemic?
Yeah, we conducted our third annual Brighter Together business survey at the end of last year. And the vast majority of businesses were actually more positive and upbeat about the future than they had been in the previous couple of years. And specifically, most companies in Lethbridge are planning to both hire and spend more money on capital. So, it's a very good thing when businesses are signaling their intention to both add jobs, but also improve their facilities and add equipment. Since we conducted that survey, of course, we've seen the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, which has driven up the price of oil and the cost of transportation. We've seen the Bank of Canada respond to fears about inflation, so interest rates are on the rise. And locally, there's some risk of another dry, hot summer, which could be a concern for local ag producers. So there are some risks on the horizon. It's not to say everything's perfect, sunshine and roses, but businesses that I talk to remain fairly upbeat about our prospects for Lethbridge.
How about some of the restaurants which unfortunately had to close during the pandemic? They took it really on the chin, during the pandemic itself. Have you talked to some of those business owners?
The whole tourism and hospitality sector, of course, was the hardest hit. So hotels, restaurants, any of that high touch sort of service industry. The good news for Lethbridge is we've had a number of key sporting events. You know, both the Indigenous Games as well as the Briar have helped drive some generate some traffic for both hotels and restaurants. We are starting to see people come back across the border and from other parts of Alberta as restrictions lift. So we are starting to see that sector come back. We have seen jobs increase, about 1,000 jobs last month, for example, in hospitality, but still a long way to go to get back to where we were before the pandemic began.
You know, when I first started in this crazy industry of broadcast journalism, I remember my news director at that time says, "You see that stack of resumes and tapes on my desk? You're going to have to work twice as hard for half the amount of money or I'm going to replace you just like that," right? And I'm like, wow, that's a nice welcome after you just graduate from college, right? But it seems like nowadays there are a lot more jobs, as we talked about, as opposed to potential employees. So maybe the employee can be a little more picky and choosy when it comes to whom he or she wants to work for.
Yeah, it is very much a job seekers market. To your point, I've had bosses along the way over the years that have said, you know, there's plenty of people to replace you. Now that's not quite the story. And so, you know, some of it is we're seeing increases in wages as companies try to be more attractive, but we're seeing things like flexible hours, more benefits. Companies are having to be creative about how they attract and retain that key ingredient of talent.
Now, Trevor, the last time we chatted, we talked a bit about the amendments of the Business Corporations Act, BCA, which the UCP government had proposed. Do you think these amendments are leading to Southern Alberta being more competitive and an attractive place to do business?
Well, you know, the current provincial government has talked about making Alberta into a red tape-free zone and providing this environment where companies can experiment with new corporate structures and have increased flexibility to raise capital. The changes, frankly, are meant to position Alberta as a bit of a living lab. You know, the government has talked about creating a sandbox in which companies can play with different operating models. And, you know, simultaneous to that, the province has been focused on reducing corporate taxes to make Alberta one of the lowest tax cost jurisdictions in North America. But to do that, they've eliminated some very targeted industry-specific incentives and other tax breaks. So it's a bit of a good news, bad news story. And frankly, I think the jury's still out on whether or not it's actually driving incremental business development for the province.
Trevor, do you think there's something more specific you'd like to see from the province that you feel would really help Lethbridge business owners?
I think, you know, when you think about Lethbridge, of course, agriculture is a key industry for us, and the province and the federal government have a program called CAP, or the Canada-Alberta Partnership. So it supports innovation and expansion in agriculture and agri-food. But the scope of those grant programs and the dollars available have been reduced over the years. So we've been advocating to the province to really take a serious look at some of those programs and how they might expand them. Locally, we've had the federal government through what is now known as Prairies Can, or Prairies Economic Development Canada. So a very long title, but one of my favorite departments. And so as the federal government has stepped up with new programs and new supports, the province has similarly withdrawn. So I think there's a real opportunity for the province to come back to the table, match some of those federal dollars that are very targeted, again, at innovation, technology. You know, the future of our economy is digital. So we need to make sure we're supporting businesses with that transition and really focused on how do we attract that right talent into our community. And the third piece, I think, which is prevalent in all of the news stories that are on your network, as well as top of mind for a lot of people, is the shortage of family doctors. So attracting business, attracting talent is all about having great quality of life. So my organization, we've been working with Alberta Health Services, the Chinook Primary Care Network, and the city to build a bit of a strategy to recruit doctors. We absolutely have to address that. And that in the short term probably has more impact than a specific tax break or a specific financial incentive from the province.
Yeah, City Council recently passed that motion about spending, about $15,000 to retain and attract the doctors to our region here. So what do you think that'll actually look like? Let's say I'm a doctor, you're trying to sell me on Lethbridge. What would you say to me?
Well, I think that, you know, part of the reason that doctors would come here, when we talk to physicians, they're very interested in quality of life for themselves and their families. So that's the mountain biking in the mountains, that's skiing, that's access to the border. All the amenities and services of a big city are here in Lethbridge, but certainly house prices are somewhere between 20 and 30% cheaper than Edmonton and Calgary. That's a big win. Those commute distances to work are, you know, usually 10 minutes or less. So that's a big selling feature. And the cost of operating a practice, the actual cost of your real estate and labor to run a medical practice is cheaper here in Lethbridge. So there is more money to be made if you're a physician that operates a practice. So it's selling all of those features, educating people on all the great things that Lethbridge has to offer.
Now, one of the main economic drivers in our region, of course, is agriculture. And we're praying for rain for our farmers, our producers, the ranchers. What happens if we have another dry summer? How will that really impact our agriculture industry?
Well, as you pointed out, this is potentially the second year in a row of dry forecasted weather, which is a concern. Many people had challenges with crop yields last year, and so we've got this interesting challenge in that commodity prices, in many cases, are at record levels. But if we don't have good weather, if we don't have that rain, then our local growers and producers will not be able to take advantage of that opportunity. Similarly, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia has had an impact on global markets. Of course, that's driven prices up. But it's also identified that there is an opportunity for Canada to play more of an active role on the global stage, supplying more of the world's food supply. And so it's a question of how can we ramp up production? How can we increase acreage and efficiency, take advantage of the government's expansion, $900 million roughly invested in expanding irrigation in our region. So how do we take advantage of all of those things to supply a growing and hungry world?
What's the latest with the Agribusiness Hub and Trade Center, and how important is it economically to our region here?
Yeah, so the Agri-Food Hub at Exhibition Park is proceeding on schedule. Construction, if you haven't driven by in a little while, I encourage people to do that. Lots of steel going up. It's an enormous footprint. It's a very exciting building. But beyond the building itself, it's going to give us a location to showcase the agriculture of our region, the technology and expertise that's here. It's going to give us a meeting place and an innovation location where we can bring great minds together and hopefully, create new products and new technologies. So I'm very excited about the project. I think it's an amazing anchor for our community. And right now it is the single largest capital investment. It's the single largest construction project in the city that's on the books for this year. So again, it's very significant from a immediate construction job and local job creation opportunity as well.
Trevor, you talked to a lot of ranchers, a lot of farmers, a lot of agriculture business people. How much do our producers really help provide for the rest of the province and Canada?
Yeah, I think people don't, we say that agriculture is important, but we often forget the fact that for Lethbridge itself, the agriculture community is about 1/5 or 20% of our gross domestic product. So, 20% of our economy locally depends on agriculture. Certainly the province has other industries, and we all know that oil and gas is a significant player for the province. But the opportunity globally, again, is to meet that growing population demand. There's less and less food security. Canada, Alberta specifically, has a great reputation globally about how safe and secure our food supply is. So the more value-added processing we can do here, the more we can grow that part of our economy. And it's a significant contributor, not just to the city, but to the province as well. So there's a real opportunity, I think, to grow it more.
We recently had the grand reopening at the Lethbridge Airport. Premier Kenney came down for the announcement. How will this help drive even more business here to the Windy City?
From an investment attraction perspective, bringing new businesses to Lethbridge, one of the key considerations is great links to international airports. So pre-pandemic, Calgary was connected to about 100 global destinations with direct flights. That's pretty amazing for a relatively small airport on a global stage. But our connectivity, Lethbridge to Calgary, is so critical to giving people easy access in and out. So that's critical from businesses choosing to be here. But of course, we're a regional hub for tourism. There's lots of people that come. You can visit 4 UNESCO World Heritage Sites all within 90 minutes of Lethbridge. So we really want to make sure that airport is first of all, a pleasant place to be, an efficient operation, but allows great access to our city so that we can attract more visitors to Lethbridge and take some of that tourism market that Alberta is targeting.
Let's chat a bit now about cross-border trade. How much value is created here in Lethbridge because of American consumers, specifically Montana, who are so close?
Yeah, we do love to have our American friends come to visit our region, of course. They stay in our hotels, they eat in our restaurants, they shop in our stores. As I said, Lethbridge is a regional hub on the tourism side. And Travel Alberta, actually the provincial, tourism marketing body, is very keenly interested in growing the visitor economy. And tourism from the United States, of course, is the easiest because they're our largest market in closest proximity. So there's a real drive to do more of that. We've been chatting recently, actually, with my counterpart in Great Falls, so the Great Falls Development Authority, about better relationships between our two cities and how do we expand more business connections city to city. So, again, if you're an American and you get an immediate 20% discount on your purchase because of currency, that's always an attractive feature as well. So while there's that spread, hopefully we can continue to see people crossing that line.
Is there a lot of confidence amongst business owners here in Lethbridge with our new city council?
The new city council has hit the ground running. They've clearly run on a platform of open for business, friendly for business. In fact, their action plan for this year, the very first and top priority on the list was a regional economic development and tourism strategy. So the conversations that I've had with council is they're very keen to better understand what's needed to drive further investment in our city and help existing businesses grow. Secondarily, of course, investments in infrastructure like the agri-food hub at Exhibition Park, the renovations of the airport, continuing to make sure we've got great infrastructure and great connectivity. And council, I think, seems very keenly focused on that. And most recently, of course, they approved a 0% tax increase, at least on the municipal portion. So other levels of government, like the province, get to set the education rate, but the municipal portion isn't going up. And I think that's really important as businesses face challenges on the costs of labor and inflation on goods and supplies, that at least there won't be an incremental tax burden. So, kudos to City Council for recognizing that and staying the course with a zero tax environment as well.
Trevor Lewington is the CEO of Economic Development Lethbridge. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Most of us know someone who struggles with addiction, but it becomes even more heartbreaking when it's someone you know and love. You've tried everything, but it seems as though there's no hope. Today's guest has a lot of success helping those with addictions. Dr. Greg Jans, he's a psychologist, author and founder of the Center, A Place of Hope, and one of the top facilities for treatment of depression in the United States. One of his latest books is called When a Loved One is Addicted. Dr. Jans, welcome back to Bridge City News.
Oh, good to be with you. And it's a challenging but important topic.
Especially during the pandemic right now, a lot of people are feeling depressed and anxious, and they're turning to various addictions to help them cope with it right now. So where are we at when it comes to addiction across North America?
Well, across North America, here's what we know. There are three predominant issues going on. Very high anxiety, followed by depression, followed by addiction. Addiction rates are up in every category, whether it be digital addiction, whether it be alcohol. I mean, we're making record sales, which is a funny thing to say, with alcohol. So the level, and part of what happened during the pandemic is alcohol consumption, as you might have guessed, did go way up. We also know that cannabis use, we haven't mentioned food yet, food's in there as well, and the misuse of prescription drugs. So anything really related to addiction, the numbers are higher than really we've ever seen.
Now, what are some of the traits or the telltale signs of addiction outside of the fact you don't have as much money in your bank account?
Yeah, well, that will be one you'll notice, absolutely. The other is it's secrecy. I try to hide this. I try to keep it away from others. So anytime there's secrecy, there may be shame. I'm really embarrassed about this. And then we play the game with ourselves that says, you know what, it's really not hurting anybody. I can stop this at any time. And so we start to move into what we call denial in order to justify our behavior. Over time, here's what to look at. Over time, that addictive behavior, it's like a ticking time bomb. Something will break. Something will break down. Sometimes it's physically, sometimes it's in a relationship. But addiction will lead you down a road, ultimately, that's very self-destructive, a road you didn't want to go down.
Do you think the reason why a lot of people struggle with addiction is because they simply want to escape from reality?
Well, they want to, and that's a good way to put it, they want to mood elevate. I'm tired of this depression. I'm tired of this anxiety. I'm tired of what's going on in the world. I'm tired. And you get into that mode and you go, I just want to feel different. Okay, so what do I do to mood elevate? Well, I can binge eat. I can drink. I can do escapism behavior online. You name it, anything to temporarily cause me to feel differently.
Now, you say that there are certain fears that seem to fuel addictive behavior. Can you flesh that out a little bit for us?
Oh yeah, and, behind a lot of addiction. And by the way, it's so easy for any of us, and we should just say that anybody can slide into this. So if you've been living with a lot of anxiety, okay, let's look at the season we're in. Has there been some anxiety? Okay, we look at what's going on in the world today, and we go, there's some anxiety, there's some unknowns. So anytime that we have unknowns that are significant about our future, about what's happening in government, about what may be happening that feels totally out of our control, that will be a prompt, a fear that will cause us at some point, I need a new way of coping with this.
Are there certain specific barriers that prevent those who are battling addiction from seeking help?
Well, one barrier is going to be embarrassment. It's like, I should have this figured out. I should be able to quit. And so it's that embarrassment. The other is the whole area of getting help, mental health, and addiction. Sometimes, depending on where we live, it's looked at that, well, what is wrong with you? And so the judgment of a person who may be struggling could be another barrier. Another barrier is, I'm not hurting anybody else. This is just me, and you don't understand. I have to do this. And so the barrier could be that denial, which can be pretty strong.
We had alcoholism in our family, and I had to go to Al-Anon meetings to learn how to cope, adjust, and be able to help this individual in our family who battled with alcoholism. And one thing I do remember from Al-Anon that really stood out for me, doctor, was when they said, you never tell a person battling alcoholism that you got a problem with drinking, because the walls, the barriers will go up. You ask the person, do you love me? Do you care about me? Of course I do. I have a problem. Can you help me with my problem? Yes, I want to help you. I have a problem with your drinking. So basically, it puts the onus on yourself so the walls don't go up for them. So how else can we really help people with their addictions, especially when it comes to alcoholism?
Well, and that's very, very good advice. And one of the things that we've got to stay in the game with them. There's times where it feels so hopeless, and you go, oh, the person relapsed again, and it can be very discouraging. So we want to separate the addiction from the person. A lot of times when you're talking to a person who's struggling with addiction, you're kind of talking to that addiction. And remember who they were before addiction got a stronghold. And so we're fighting really the stronghold of that addiction in a person's life. Stay in the game with them, where you're probably not going to be their main solution, but we can, with appropriate boundaries and appropriate interventions, we can help them get the help they need, but it's something they will have to decide. And I think that's why it's so, you can see how destructive it is, but then you go, why don't they get help? That's the power of the addiction. One of the things is we don't want to enable or contribute to it. Recently, I had a mom who said, you know what, my son came by and I knew exactly what he was going to do, but I gave him $20 just hoping he'd buy food. But she knew. Okay, so there's a tough love that says, I cannot do things that are going to contribute to this addiction.
You know what I've noticed as well, doctor, is that everybody has a different rock bottom level. Sometimes they have to hit rock bottom before they reach out for help. Let's talk a bit about that.
A rock bottom means things got bad. But a rock bottom for one person is different than the other. Some people, and I've seen this, they may end up homeless. They may end up losing everything in the relationships that they once really cherished because of that addiction, the power of that addiction. We see that a lot with opiate, the pain pill medication, that addiction is so strong. We see it in those that are the fentanyl addiction. So we know that ultimately it is life and death.
Why are boundaries so important when it comes to dealing with an addict?
Because an addict is a specialist in manipulation. They can manipulate you, the situation. That's what addiction does. It makes you really good at manipulating people and situations. And so a boundary just says, I need to protect myself from that manipulation. A boundary says, I love you and I cannot do that. whatever that might be. So a boundary is self-preservation as well as it can be life-saving to the person.
Do you feel that sometimes people will use an addiction such as drugs or alcohol to fill that void in their lives because they simply don't have God in their lives?
Well, I believe an addiction always fulfills a purpose. It can change how you feel temporarily. It helps you avoid oftentimes reality. And it can fill up that emptiness. It's like, man, there's something missing. Well, I end up turning to addiction to temporarily try to fulfill whatever that is. And I don't know if that's necessarily a conscious choice, but I think that's what ends up happening. So we need, and you look, most recovery programs contain a spiritual component, which is interesting, because when we survey our clients or patients like a year after leaving here, they'll say, you know what, I got so much help from the Center, A Place of Hope, and I learned new tools, but it was really my faith that kept me on course for the long run. And so we know that's got to be a foundation of recovery.
Now, what advice would you give someone who feels helpless and hopeless to bring about change in themselves or maybe in someone else that they really and truly love?
We need to remember that an addiction lies. An addiction distorts reality. Addiction tells you you deserve this. Addiction tells you you really have no value. And so you're fighting the lies of addiction. And so we've got to look beyond that. Look, you are not your addiction. Don't take it on as my self-identity. When we walk around and say, you know, I'm an addict and this is how I guess I was made, and you live that way, that's surrendering to the addiction. We believe, and because we see it happen, that there is hope, and hope comes when there's a plan. I may need to surrender a plan over to others who can help me. I do believe that people struggling with addiction would have changed. Most of them say, I tried to, but I failed. They know they need change when they're really honest with themselves, but they need help doing it.
Let's talk about the addiction when it comes to seniors addicted to opioids or painkillers. You know, we hear a lot of that. We see the statistics each and every year across North America. How should we best approach that? Because that's a serious issue as well.
Oh, absolutely. So an opiate or pain medication is a very easy addiction to slide into. There's approximately every day, these are rough estimates, but we know that there are over 100 deaths every day in North America due to an opiate overdose. We know that many times this started off very innocently. Person had surgery, person had pain, and they became very addicted very quickly. And so it's a slow but certain path to at times death and destruction. What happens in the brain that makes that craving so intense is what really needs to be understood. This is just not a person saying, I need another pill. The intensity of that drug craving it's difficult to describe, but it's very powerful.
How should we maybe approach younger people as opposed to seniors when it comes to their addiction? What's the game plan there, especially if they're addicted to drugs or alcohol?
Well, and maybe they're addicted to the digital world and social media, which we do see. I've seen people who have withdrawal symptoms when you take away anything with a screen in their life, and you will see 2 or 3 days later. I've seen sweats, I've seen irritability, I've seen all the symptoms of withdrawal, and heart rate goes up from a digital addiction. So I know it's real. Now, for our young folks, there's a lot of apathy right now, a lot of apathy about their future. The last couple of years, we had some of the highest academic failure than we've ever seen. And so kids generally, and I'm making a broad statement, are not doing well as it relates to both academics and in their social development. Kids need that with their social development. They need to go through those normal stages. What they've been through the last couple of years is not normal. So we've got to understand their needs. And we also know that addiction is starting at younger ages. Age 9 right now tends to be about the age that many kids are exposed to pornography on the internet. Well, that's alarming. And they begin a pattern at age 9 that can kind of take them down a path where they add more and more addiction as they go along. So this is very real for our kids. We need to understand that they're vulnerable to addiction.
Do you think as well, because the fact with the COVID-19 pandemic, many young people have been isolated away from their friends, away from school, that perhaps that fueled the digital addiction?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've seen situations where, kids were supposedly doing school virtually with a screen, but on their other device or their phone, they're playing online games with the kids in the class. So generally speaking, we had significant online academic failure. It did not work. It did not work well at all, even for teachers. Now, that did set the kids up for a sense of kind of general failure. And we've got to understand that developmentally, depending on the age of the kid, they need to go through certain stages that is a part of socialization. And we know that masking the kids was not of help. I can tell you right now, for the younger kids, we're seeing where speech development occurs, we are seeing speech pathologists who are very busy because of delayed language development.
Wow. Dr. Greg Jans is a psychologist and author of When a Loved One is Addicted, available at placeofhope.com. Dr. Jans, thanks so much for joining us today from Washington State.
Oh, very good to be with you.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and thanks for watching.